And welcome back to Ralston Live. I'm your host, John Ralston. Today, we are fortunate to have Paul Mendocha. He's an author and what he calls a turnaround consultant. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Now, the book is Position to Win. You can get it on the web at positiontowinbook.com, in which you talk of positioning. What is positioning?
Well, positioning is actually everybody is positioned or every product is positioned. So if you think about it, it's how we make decisions about something. So if I asked you to name a Japanese car company, what car company would come to your mind? What would you say first?
Toyota.
Toyota. So here's the interesting part. See, you passed the test already, John. You look smart to begin with, and now good
I
look
cleaned up
brains.
today.
You got it all. There you go.
I knew you were
Well,
coming, John.
that's it. The important part about it is that you just passed a positioning test, which is we all have in our minds these maps, these bias maps. And what positioning is literally taking those things that are most at the top of your mind or wherever they are going to fit. And that's where you are. So Toyota happens to be the largest car company in the world right now, highest valuation in the world, has a stellar reputation on every continent but Antarctica, and they are positioned as the top dog. Now, what happens is that people will wake up and they'll start a business and they'll say, okay, I've got this great idea. And then they talk their friends and their relatives and everybody to pool in some money. And they never ask themselves, so where are we positioned? Who are the competitors? Who are the people out there that we're going to be competing against? Because if you're going to go compete against somebody, you better know where you fit. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be number one. In fact, there's only one number one. But what it means is that you have to define where you're going after and then see where you fit. And that's your position. And that's the position you get to have.
John, do you think people put too much emphasis on Google positioning, in your opinion?
Well, so Google positioning it's interesting because Google is another bias map, and this is driven by their algorithm, but all of the various ways that people search. And Google tells you it's based upon relevant relevant searches and what is relevant to people, relevant content. Now, I have to tell you that if you're not in that number on that first page, if you're on the second page or even below the fold, you have some serious issues and serious
Mm-hmm.
problems. But the mistake that people make is that they end up getting pigeonholed or they get positioned by their competitors and they never really see where they exactly fit.
Now, do you think it's more important to have to put out a lot of effort to have your phone ring, or do you prefer that the approach where you go talk to a lot of customers?
Well, I'm a little old school. I think that we want to go talk to a lot of customers. However, what I really believe is that you need to be able to define for those customers what you do, but more importantly, where they place you. And this is always the challenge because right now, if you go out and you ask people, well, okay, where are you going to search for something? They're going to go search for it on Google, right? They're going to go search for it somewhere like that. Now, Google is not the only search engine, but it is over 85% of all the searches are done there, which is why they're so massively successful. Now, positioning is all about where you fit in the mind of the prospect, in the mind of the customer. So if we're going to go see people, we don't want to see them at random. We want to see people who say, you know what, I see somebody like John Ralston and say, okay, this is where John fits in, and this is why I should be talking to him.
The book is Position to Win, where you say most businesses fail in 5 minutes, and it takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. What do you mean by that? And first of all, why do you think most businesses fail in 5 minutes?
Well, so in the first 5 minutes, you define what position you're going to put out to the market. You're going to tell people, or you're gonna say, this is what I'm going to do, and whatever that is, that is something that you determine. Now, most people do very little research before they do that, and then what they do is they go out, they raise money, or they take, they loot their the piggy bank or whatever it happens to be. And then they go out there and they find out that that isn't what customers think. And that's all that matters is what those people out there who are going to give you money, who are going to do a transaction. That's what's so important. And if you can't figure that part out, then you're in serious trouble. And that's where, I mean, in the first 5 minutes, people make positioning mistakes right up front, and they're stuck with those mistakes until the bitter end. And what happens is that's why 80-90% of businesses fail, is that their positioning is wrong to begin with, and they're essentially going downhill right in the beginning.
Do you think a lot of people aren't making a business plan where you're supposed to figure those things out ahead of time?
So yeah, so I think that a business plan is important. Well, what we say is let's go out there and tell me what you're going to talk to people about. What's your value proposition? And now let's go build a positioning diagram and see who else is out there. Give you a quick example. 1971, this company invented coffee, right? Because before 1971, there was no such thing as coffee. Starbucks in 1971 invented coffee, and therefore we now had coffee. I mean, it was like the Big Bang. Now, everybody's listening to me right now saying this is crazy, but right now, Starbucks is a huge business, multi-billion dollars. And what they did is they actually changed how coffee was perceived and how it was made and how it was done. And people are paying $4 to $5 for a cup of coffee, and there's no alcohol in it at all, as far as I can tell.
Well, as far as
And
we know.
as far as we know. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that right now there are 25 companies that you can go out and there's probably more than that, but there are 25 companies who are selling franchises to people who are going to go out and take their life savings and pour them into this franchise, pun intended. And what they're going to do is they're going to go compete against Starbucks. And I say to them, what in the world are you thinking? Unless you're going to do something dramatically different, unless it's going to be able to be positioned differently, you are going to be on a very rough and rocky road.
I've seen three coffee shops on one block. And they say competition is good for them. But probably within 3 to 5 years, one of them won't be there. Is that your assessment?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably two of the three won't make it because people will start making decisions. It's interesting because I've been able to talk to a high level executive that works at Einstein Bagels, which is a chain, right? And they went out and they bought Caribou Coffee, which is another chain. And they bought Caribou Coffee because what they found out is that the most successful Einstein bagel shops usually were right next to a Starbucks. So two people would show up. One person would walk in and buy the bagels. The other person would go over to Starbucks and buy the coffee. Now, by the way, Starbucks noticed this, and like in places like in Vegas, they actually moved the Starbucks away from Einstein's because Einstein's was taking the food business, which Starbucks wanted. But there's an example of where those are pretty large companies duking it out in that space. And what I say to someone is that if you're don't have that kind of pockets, and nobody has pockets deep enough to go fighting that kind of trend, and that is a positioning mistake that people make with regularity. So in all likelihood, if they say, well, hey, it's great to have that competition, my suggestion is that those people really gotta get maybe some help or something, because they're gonna two of the three of them will in all likelihood go broke because there is not enough, unless there's some differentiation. And that's what you need. You need extreme differentiation if you're going to end up doing that.
Now, tell us about the podcast, Position to Win, and some of the other things that you're doing on Facebook.
So yeah, thanks a lot, appreciate it. Every Friday I do a 40-minute Facebook Live, which is called the Raging Verbalist, and that would be me. And what I do is I pick a topic. Like I'm going to be talking about Valentine's Day. I've talked about the Super Bowl. We'll talk about a variety of different topics, and it's really aimed at business. It's aimed at people who are understanding what they need to do, and what it does is it takes all the years of experience I have, and we take a topic and we ask people to send in questions, and I talk about a topic and a subject and give some people some insight through Facebook Live. There's no charge, and by the way, we have a Position to Win book Facebook group that you can join, and you can get more information about that. The other thing that I do is I have been involved because my natural sweet spot is the sales arena. And what I do is I actually have a sales meeting for either people who hate a sales meeting or they don't have one. Oftentimes, small businesses, they don't have a sales meeting. And what they do is my members come on and we spend an hour. There's no pitching for this hour. And it's on a Monday morning. And what I do is I talk about a sales topic, and I go deep, and I go into some great detail. The point of it is that this is aimed at people who are very serious about their career or their business and what they want to do. Last Monday, I did number 805. I've been doing it 16 years. My way of thinking is that we have an unlimited opportunity to innovate in marketing and sales. Most people don't, but we have an unlimited opportunity.
That's fantastic. Speed Start Monday, as you were talking about, you talk about, you call yourself a turnaround consultant, and you talk about cleaning out the deadwood. Is this something that has to do with saving time for the salesman?
Well, yeah. So the turnaround consulting came about because what I would do is I would walk into a situation and could outsell groups of people, and I found out that I could get paid a lot more money as a turnaround consultant than working for companies. But what I learned about turning businesses around is that businesses accept mediocrity to a great extent. The other thing is that they don't understand that we have to do something now. We have to do it very, very quickly. And the whole positioning process comes into every time I do a turnaround, which is what is the perception of the market about who my client is. An example would be had a technology client and they wanted to believe that they were number one. Well, they weren't number one. In fact, they were like number four in a 3-horse race. So they were like in real trouble. But in their mind, and they had like the little cool laminated cards. I'm sure if you walk around and you see businesses that somebody will sell them that they should laminate a card with their sayings on it or some nonsense. Anyway, what they did is I cleaned out their sales team. I revamped the entire process, and we just accepted where we were. Now, in that case, we went from being highly unprofitable. They were losing money. They were bleeding out. And we took that and we turned that around in less than a year and a half. Now, that's a big plus because you're taking a very negative situation, turning it positive. And when you say clear out the dead wood, well, let's talk about sales professionals. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're a sales professional, I'm going to tell you right now, most sales professionals, especially today, waste a lot of time on playing with technology and playing with other things and not interacting with customers. If you interact with customers more, prospects more, you will make more money. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be around technology. I've used technology my entire career. I was a very early adopter of technology. It's just that people become, if you will, seduced by this technology and they quit actually doing their real job. Their real job is to advocate a position, talk about something, sell somebody something, for heaven's sakes. I, I'm just astonished when I go places and people aren't trying to sell me something. Now, again, I'm not saying that you should, put somebody in a headlock, ram them to the ground, yank out their wallet, get all that stuff out. What I'm saying is that you have to actually sell them something and talk to them in a way that you're trying to get them to make a decision. Selling always comes down to that. And when you're going to do a turnaround, because again, I don't focus on the financial side. So those guys, I often work with the financial advisors who are trying to, keep the business from bleeding out, putting the tourniquet on. My task is to get more blood into the system, to get more money coming in. That's what I'm being paid to do. And that's something that I've done successfully over the years.
Well, I think we could do about an hour. I did like 7 questions just popped into my mind, but we're running short on time. Real
Sure.
quick, for the salesman that says, "Well, I get to the company, I go in through the door, but there's always this gatekeeper here. How do I get to the important person? Even if they know the name, they can't get past the gatekeeper. Do you have a tip for them?"
Oh, certainly. Well, I'll give you a quick run through of this. First off, most of the people that I meet today, it's surprising, and I'm working a lot more with millennials than ever before. They don't use Google the way I do. So let's say, oh, I'm going to talk to this guy, John Ralston. So what did I do? I put you into into Google. I started doing searches. I started reading about you. Hey, we don't want to talk about what happened in Mexico a few years ago, but I started looking around, and I learned as much as I can. So if I'm going to go see, let's say, Bob Smith at a company, what I want to do is I want to know as much as I possibly can about Bob Smith and the company before I show up, because that way I have a much better chance of getting past the gatekeeper. So if you walk in, you stumble in, you fumble your way through, and you can't talk coherently, you're in trouble. The other thing that happens is that usually salespeople have a tendency to treat the gatekeeper or like the security people very poorly. Mm-hmm. I do not. In fact, I actually, it's too long a story for radio right now, but I can tell you that I saved a client, saved his bacon and saved him a lot of money. Now, what did I do? I showed up at the facility in San Jose. By the way, that wasn't where my client was. My client was back east, but I showed up at the facility 3 hours before the meeting. And what I did was I spent time in the lobby. And I feigned, a little white lie, I feigned that I had screwed up the time zone thing, right? 3 hour difference. And what I did was I spent time in the lobby and I read everything that was in the lobby. I talked to the security people. I asked them about this. I went through all this. I got all this. That's called reconnaissance. But see, most people want to walk in, and the first thing that I do is they want to get to this, bam, they want to walk in and they want to make the big splash. Well, I'm going to tell you that you should learn as many of these things as you possibly can before you show up. The other thing is that if you find out that a person that you want to go meet has, and this especially LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's all out there. You can go find people and go meet them. I ended up flying in and sitting with a sales rep of mine. We drove 90 miles to run into a guy at a coffee shop. Now, you got to be serious if you want to do that. Now, the point of it is that we ran into the guy we needed to run into because we knew this stuff. We did some reconnaissance. So the fastest way to get past the gatekeeper is that you have to be able to seem like you actually should be there and you're not that annoyance, that you're really that person that they want to talk to.
The book, once again, is Position to Win. You can get it on the net at positiontowinbook.com. John Paul Mendocha, thanks for joining us, and we wish you a lot of luck out there in sunny California.
Thank you, John. It's really been a pleasure to talk to you and your listeners today.
Thank you. Folks, when we come right back, we have more for you. This is Ralston Live here at PBR Productions and also Bucksmont Live on the radio at WNPV. You can catch archives of that show at WNPV1440.com every Saturday at 7 a.m. And you can visit PBR Productions at pbrproductions.com.
My name's Kevin Roberts with Durham Hill Farm, and this is my wife, Elizabeth.
Q&B has helped our brewery keep up with our brand.
Right now is the most exciting time ever to be in manufacturing.
Hey, hon, I think we're out of syrup.
All right, we can get some at the Q Mart.
That really understand what it is the vision is.
Penn Community Bank has engaged through financial contribution.
I'm Todd Hutchins, owner of TNT Amusement Center.
My name is Ben Shearer. I work for Highline Off-Road. We do aftermarket Jeep parts.
What was it like with the Walkthrough History app?
To print stuff back in the day, you had to set each individual letter by hand.
Billing, dental hygiene, extractions.
He has a good wrestling mind. He's great with the talent.
We're the ones that go take care of it. People call us Ghost Fellas.